What's up, everyone? Welcome back to the channel. If you're as deep into Where Winds Meet as I am, you know this open world inspired by ancient China is a martial arts frenzy, with fluid combat where every parry or dash across rooftops looks like something out of a wuxia film. But after mastering the basics, unlocking foggy maps, stealing a horse to gallop through the landscape, or pulling off your first combo in a duel, things get really serious. Today, I'm going to share 7 advanced tips that completely changed how I play, straight from my hours of trial and error, like chaining stance transitions for unbeatable combos, or exploiting environmental tricks that take down enemies in PvP and epic bosses. This isn't beginner talk. These are the secrets that transform you from a common wanderer into a legendary shadow hero. Stick with me, and we'll sharpen these skills together. One of the things that really raised my game in Where Winds Meet was learning to master weapon swapping along with animation canceling. At first, it seemed complicated, but when you realize you can use the tab key to attack while swapping weapons and create a devastating combo sequence, the game takes on a whole new dimension. This technique made me more fluid and aggressive in fights, allowing me to connect attacks much more quickly and unexpectedly. What impressed me most was how using weapon swapping can transform a common build into something advanced and versatile. I started to notice that by switching between the right weapons at the right time, I could leverage the strengths of each one in the appropriate situations, making my combos not only more creative, but also more efficient. This gave me a sense of control and adaptability I had never experienced in other fighting games. Animation canceling, in turn, was a discovery that completely changed how I defend and react, especially in PvP. Canceling skill animations with the parry button added an extra layer of speed and reflex to battles. This feature helped me achieve almost instantaneous defensive reactions, which is crucial when every millisecond counts and can be the difference between winning or losing. For me, the combination of these techniques isn't just a matter of practicality, but of style and mastery of the game. They do require practice, but they reward you with a level of play that goes far beyond the basics. Learning to fit weapon swapping into your attack routines and using animation canceling at critical moments made me feel like I'm truly dictating the pace of combat, not just being another face in the crowd. In the end, my tip is to invest time in training these mechanics, because they are the key to building a powerful and super adaptable build, especially in PvP. The control you gain over animations and the fluidity of attacks gives Where Winds Meet a highly competitive feel that truly rewards those who choose to master every detail of combat. It's well worth delving into these techniques. One tip that significantly changed how I approach the toughest fights in Where Winds Meet is optimizing the execute timing, that finisher action with the F key. In the beginning, I used to hit execute as soon as the prompt appeared, thinking the sooner, the better. But after some testing, I realized that delaying that moment until about 1 second before the timer runs out makes all the difference in the total damage you deal. This delay isn't just to maintain tension, but to ensure you maximize DPS on bosses and also in PvP. I was surprised to see how waiting calmly can make the finisher's damage much more potent, as this technique allows you to extend the period you're dealing regular damage before the final blow. It's that save the best for last idea, and it really made me feel like I was getting the most out of my abilities. Furthermore, optimizing the execute timing brought a change to my combat mentality. Before, I was in a rush to end fights, but by learning this technique, I adopted a more strategic approach, waiting for the right moment to unleash the blow that will actually land the killing blow. This waiting requires patience and control. But at the same time, it creates a much greater sense of reward when the execute finally happens. In PvP, this technique also proved essential, because controlling when to perform the final blow can be the difference between being surprised or surprising your opponent. Knowing how to use time to your advantage, landing the execute at that crucial moment increases the pressure on the opponent and can unbalance the fight. I felt this elevated my level of play and gave me an important tactical advantage in the arenas. Learning to optimize the execute timing was a game changer for me in Where Winds Meet. It's a detail that might seem small, but in practice, it greatly maximizes damage and increases the control you have over each combat. If you want to improve your DPS and have more success against bosses and in PvP, it's well worth practicing this technique and feeling the impact it brings to your journey in the game.
One of the builds that got me most excited for PvP was the combination of the Nameless Sword with the Infernal Twin Blades. Since I started using this duo, I noticed how my combat style became much more explosive and aggressive, with that feeling of burst that can eliminate an opponent before they even have time to react. The speed of the cancels and the mobility of this build really gave me a brutal advantage in the arenas. What I like most about this combination is how it allows for an almost continuous flow of attacks, with very smooth cancels that make combat feel like a frenetic dance. You can link a series of rapid strikes, mixing blows from each weapon, which confuses the opponent and makes defense difficult. This fluidity is essential for an advanced build in PvP, where every second counts and the pace of the fight can determine who comes out on top. Another point I really value is the insane mobility this build provides. Besides the attack power, you can move easily to avoid counterattacks and reposition for new surprise attacks. This freedom of movement gives you not only offensive options, but also defensive ones, like quick escapes from dangerous situations and avoiding being cornered. Additionally, this build taught me the importance of prioritizing weapons that have instant kill potential, along with efficient escape tools. In PvP, it's not enough just to deal damage. You need to ensure the opponent doesn't have a chance to counterattack. The Nameless Sword plus Infernal Twin Blades combo fits this concept perfectly, combining raw power and agility to make quick kills and get out before the fight turns against you. In the end, using this build made me appreciate the technical and strategic side of PvP in Where Winds Meet even more. It's not just about who hits harder, but who knows how to use the right combination of weapons and movement to control the rhythm of the fight. If you want a build that unites explosion, fluidity, and mobility, this duo is a choice I highly recommend experimenting with and mastering. One of the strategies that helped me progress the most without spending a fortune was taking advantage of the free weekly gacha, along with the NPC affinity system. Everyone knows how these systems can be tedious or confusing, but when you start investing time in them, especially spending the 200 jade coins to guarantee your 4 weekly pulls, with 2 of them being premium or legendary, the impact on your progress is enormous. I started looking forward to this weekly routine because it's a constant source of weapons and items that make a difference. What really changed my way of playing was realizing that the weekly gacha isn't just about luck, but also a matter of planning. I made sure to save up the necessary jade coins so I wouldn't miss any pulls. And with that, I got stronger builds and unique equipment that helped me in difficult areas and PvP. It's the kind of resource that, when used with discipline, gives a competitive edge that many people end up ignoring. Besides the gacha, the NPC affinity system was a very positive surprise for me. Going through the chat puzzles and interacting with the characters until reaching 100 affinity isn't just a matter of story, but a way to earn passive weekly rewards that can make gameplay much easier. I found myself genuinely enjoying these conversations as they add a layer of immersion to the game and still provide that long-term sense of reward. Another point I liked about this dynamic was realizing that the game encourages you to dedicate a little time to these parallel systems. While many people focus only on exploration and combat, I started to see that patience and investment in these small details gave me rare items and upgrades that made my character stand out. This made me break away from the idea that only the heavy grind in fights matters. My tip is that you don't underestimate the power of the free weekly gacha and NPC affinity. Saving jade coins for pulls and solving chat puzzles to increase affinity are simple strategies, but they guarantee rewards that can change the course of your gameplay. For me, these systems became an essential part of my routine in Where Winds Meet, and I highly recommend you make it a habit to take full advantage of everything the game has to offer. One of the most valuable discoveries I made was using the fan as a secondary weapon, mainly for its infinite sustain capability. In the midst of intense fights, whether facing solo pushes or longer raids, this weapon became my trump card for survival. The healing circle that the fan generates is so powerful that it brings a sense of security you don't easily find with other weapons, especially when the game starts to ramp up in the legendary difficulties. What I like most about the fan is how it transforms the rhythm of the battle. While other weapons focus on pure damage, this one gives me the chance to take care of my health constantly, almost without limits. I realized that by equipping it alongside other, more offensive weapons, I can maintain focus on pressuring enemies without worrying so much about my health bar. This significantly changed my approach to combat, as it gave me the freedom to be more aggressive without the constant fear of dying quickly. Another advantage is that the fan's sustain is especially valuable in long raids, where gradual attrition can be lethal. Having this constant healing became a fundamental strategy for me in these situations, because it helps maintain my performance throughout the entire mission, while my allies focus on attack tactics. This synergy made me greatly value the active support role that the fan fulfills within the team. The simplicity and efficiency of this weapon also caught my attention. You don't need to memorize complex combinations, but rather keep the healing circle active and enjoy the power of this infinite sustain. This made my gameplay more fluid and less stressful, while also boosting my resilience and reaction capability in critical moments, something I consider essential in such a challenging game. In the end, if you're looking for a way to survive the toughest challenges in Where Winds Meet, especially in Legendary mode, I highly recommend you try using the fan as a secondary weapon. The unlimited healing cycle it provides not only makes your character much more resilient, but also gives you that extra confidence to face any situation, whether solo or in a team. This weapon has become my indispensable ally for long combats that require patience and endurance. One of the most devastating strategies I've tried in Where Winds Meet was the build called Umbrella Devastator, focused on maximizing DPS very efficiently. What won me over right away was the rotation that starts with a pre-buff of critical and attack speed, setting the stage for a sequence of powerful attacks. Starting the fight with this preparation makes all the difference, because you already enter combat with everything optimized to deal damage at high speed. Charging the full slam is a part that fascinated me about this build. Nothing beats feeling the tension of the charged attack, and then unleashing a blow that already sends the enemy to the ground. The spin canopy, which applies bleed and dot, is another brilliant stroke that turns the fight into a continuous wear down of the adversary. I love this feeling of leaving the enemy bleeding and taking damage over time, as if the combat has multiple levels happening at once. The reset with mobility completed the perfect cycle for me. This ability to reposition quickly after the attack allows you to maintain pressure without leaving openings for counterattacks. Throughout boss battles, where every move can be fatal, having this extra mobility to escape and reuse the combo was fundamental to my survival and efficiency. Regarding the ideal gear for this build, prioritizing critical damage, critical chance, penetration, and slam bonus makes all the difference. By investing in these stats, I felt that the Umbrella Devastator truly reached its maximum potential, especially against more resilient bosses. The explosive damage combined with bleed and dot allowed me to take down bosses with a speed and consistency I didn't expect at the beginning. Using this maximum DPS rotation with the Umbrella Devastator showed me how Where Winds Meet rewards well-planned strategies and specific builds. If you enjoy aggressive and technical gameplay focused on high damage and agile movement, this build is an option that is well worth experimenting with. It provided me with some of the most satisfying and intense moments I've experienced in the game, especially in challenging encounters against major bosses. One of the mechanics that most caught my attention in Where Winds Meet for increasing my in-game DPS was the use of epic interways, especially Breaking Point for accumulating crit stacks. The idea of applying up to 3 disintegration stacks to exhausted enemies through critical hits brought a new level of strategy to my battles, as it's not just about dealing damage, but also preparing the enemy to receive an even more devastating blow. What really won me over about Breaking Point was the massive bonus to physical penetration and critical damage it offers.
I felt that by accumulating these stacks, my damage took that leap that made all the difference against more resilient enemies, especially bosses and elite monsters at the end of the campaign. It's as if each crit had a multiplier effect that made me more confident to face any challenge. Furthermore, I was impressed by how the enemy's exhaustion condition is a key point for this build to work. This made me think more about how to control the pace of the fight, waiting for the right moment to apply the critical hits that will generate the disintegration stacks. Patience and timing became essential parts of my playstyle, which brought an extra layer of depth and planning to my battles. Another aspect I really liked was the chain effect this technique creates. Once you start applying the stacks, the feeling of increasing your firepower with each blow is very gratifying. For me, this made combat feel more dynamic and rewarding, because you clearly see your offensive potential growing during the fight, not just relying on basic attacks. Using Breaking Point as part of the epic interways was a game changer for maximizing my DPS and where winds meet in the endgame. If you're looking for a build that combines strategy, timing, and massive damage, it's definitely worth investing in this technique. For me, it was one of the most satisfying experiences of mastering the game's complex systems and feeling that every choice really makes a difference in combat.